Welcome to the Winning with Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. This episode is brought to you by OmniSend, trusted by more than 80,000 Shopify brands just like yours. Everything you need to scale your email marketing and ROI. Send emails, newsletters, and SMS. Build your email list with landing pages and pop-ups. One-click Shopify integration. Get 24/7 email and live chat support all with OmniSend. Now, over to your host, Nick Truman.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, it's a pleasure to have you tuning in. It's an absolute delight that you've chose to listen to this episode as your first ever episode. If you've been tuning in for a while, welcome back. We've got an action-packed episode. We've got some really exciting stuff to talk about. Before we dive in, I've got two things to flag. I've flagged them a couple of times recently as well, so apologies if you've heard this already. I'll keep it brief. We're running lots of webinars at the moment. We've got some amazing guests. We've got some amazing topics, amazing titles at my main agency, Spec. So if you want to come along to those, go to winningwithshopify.com, sign up to our newsletter, and you'll get an email about the next one coming up and all the subsequent ones after that. Second thing as well is if you're thinking of sponsoring the show, we've got a few slots left. And that might be the last time we take on sponsors like we have in the past as well. So if you want to get in touch and have a chat about what we're changing with sponsorship or you want to sponsor at the moment, then do drop us a note and let us know what you think. And for everybody else listening who's not a sponsor, we do vet these guys. We've had some feedback that we have amazing topics, amazing tools, etc. So yes, we do vet these guys before we let them on. Anyway, today we're continuing our series talking about email, talking about engaging with customers, and we're taking a completely different angle on this today and talking to somebody very interesting. Her name is EcomHannah, as she's mostly known, and we're going to call her Hannah today. But Hannah, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it is great to have you with us. And as I say, you're a bit different because you're not necessarily an ecom brand, but you're also not like a tech tool or anything. Well, not at the moment anyway. But you're not a tech tool or anything else, but it's quite exciting to have you here. So before we dive into talking about OmniSend and email and a load of other things and potentially Etsy as well, which we're going to talk about today, it'll be all very fun. Tell us a bit about what you do and what you're known for.
Sure. I mean, I guess what I am known for today and how I got to where I am today is very different to like where I started. So I started building e-commerce brands back in 2018, like right out of college. Failed many times. And then somewhere along, basically going to the School of Hard Knocks to where I am today, I started documenting that e-commerce journey on YouTube as well. So as I was building brands on primarily Etsy and Shopify, I was making these YouTube videos on the side because at the time there was people talking about Shopify, but particularly there was not a whole lot of information out there about Etsy. I think at the time it was all about like drop shipping and Amazon FBA. Etsy wasn't really on the radar. So I kind of took the angle of talking about not drop shipping, but like actual building a brand on Shopify and building brands on Etsy. So I have my EcomHannah YouTube channel that's still live, and I'm still currently running one of the brands that I built. And I've recently, well, I guess it's not recently anymore, but in 2022, I sold that first e-commerce company that I had built and documented all of my wins and all of my losses live on camera.
Well, that's awesome. I've said to so many guests recently, actually, sometimes it's the failures and the learnings and I love that song, like I get knocked down, but I get up again. And it's so important to keep doing that. It's, and if you flip it on its head, I often say to my team and sometimes to clients as well, like if you think that what we're launching or trying today is going to work, think again. I can promise you it's almost definitely going to fail. Like, and it's, you got to go through those learnings. Just out of interest then, what did you sell in these brands? What were some of the products that you've naturally become a specialist at as someone that distributes and sells them?
I can tell you that I am now a certified specialist in fast fashion jewelry.
Nice.
And actually home decor. So the first brand was fast fashion accessory line. The second brand that I started out of a very much shiny object syndrome place because I thought I could handle many things at once at the time and started other ventures at that same time, which was a mistake. The second brand that still exists is a home decor line. So that one actually sells on Etsy, Shopify, and Wayfair. And so fast fashion was really the first success that I had. I had tried many different business models before I even got to that point. So a lot of times people go on YouTube, they see a headline of like, oh, my numbers or this idea of success, but I really tried to not sell people the dream. And I also really put hard preferences in all of those videos that, yeah, like I did these numbers in 1 year or the first year and the second year, whatever. I share everything, but similar maybe to you, you had 3 years of like the school of hard knocks of basically failure after failure, trial and error, not really failures, but just like lessons, right, of things that didn't work out. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, knowledge really is power. I think certainly my agency, like I'm at a point now, if I need any more clients, there are like 5 things that I just do and 4 of them will probably work. And it's like, and then I'm sitting there going, okay, we want to work with these guys, not with those guys, and maybe these guys, but we'll talk to them. We need to ask more questions. And it's like, we're in control of the sales process, which means the ones we do sign, it's much more organic and much more natural. And unlike me of 15 years ago when I started, it was like, oh, look, a job, take it. Agree any fee we can, get some money in the bank, get a client in. And next thing you know, you're like, half my clients are a nightmare. And it wasn't them and it wasn't us. It was just the wrong relationship. And I think, as you say, you go through that process and certainly start to, you got to learn from your failures. I think if you're someone who's going to get hit by a failure and it's really going to hurt and you're not going to be able to get back up from it, don't start e-commerce or any kind of entrepreneurship in the first place. And I think that is got to be the golden rule there.
wait, how old are you? You look like you're younger than me. 15 years ago, you were like 12?
Well, the guy who edits the videos I hired him, so he has to make me look nice and smooth. No, I'm in my mid-30s now, so I'm yeah. My wife keeps reminding me I'm heading towards 40 in the next few years, but there we go.
Looking good.
but yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges I find certainly in business is sometimes when you have a conversation with someone, it can take sort of 5-10 minutes to start building confidence. But bringing that into e-commerce, I would say the same thing's happening on an e-commerce store, I would say, in terms of confidence building. We'll talk in a minute because obviously you do similar to what I do in terms of projecting content out of this about what works, what doesn't. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on that. But just before we dive in, what was it that sort of sparked you to start the YouTube channel? You said initially it was actually kind of just sharing your journey and trying to help other people and being really honest about it. How much has that evolved over the years?
Yeah, so no one's asked me that before actually, but honestly, one of the many failures I say that I tried was actually agency. So marketing agency. So go through that whole period of like hating your life, having bad clients, the whole thing. I unfortunately didn't stick it out till the end, and my clients were e-commerce. So that's how I kind of switched the whatever. And basically but the whole part of the story is at the time is I was living in South America and Colombia, and I met this girl that basically was doing the same, like she was doing agency kind of stuff. But she had a YouTube channel. And so it was this like serendipitous thing where even though I was moving away from that and trying to figure out other things, she really taught me the value of authority building and understanding so I didn't even know at the time. I was like, oh, I just need that. So like, I'm going to just go on YouTube and I'm going to just start talking about marketing stuff, like broad stuff. It wasn't until many months later, I started dialing in on e-commerce, and then you start dialing in on specific topics that people actually want to hear. But anyway, the originator of me becoming a YouTuber, I guess that's what you want to call it, was being around this other influence of this girl and understanding this idea of having authority in a space. So, and you can adopt that in your own personal brand, or you can adopt that in your actual e-commerce company, right? By building, meaningful storytelling, brands that, have a position of authority with your content, basically. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And obviously, most of the time we're talking to either like a Shopify app or some sort of platform like OmniSend is a good example, or we're talking to a Shopify store. So it's rare I talk to someone that sits the same sort of side of things as I do. And actually it can be really scary sometimes when you put an episode out and you're like, oh, that did not go well. And you get such good feedback from it. And then you put out an episode you think is amazing. And some people are like, what the heck were you thinking? Like, terrible topic, bad questions, bad guess, the lighting was right.
The haters are really mean.
Yeah, they are indeed. They are. And some of them, some of them send me emails, and I always say, like, if you've got an issue, send me an email and I'll reply. But yeah, we'll see where we go from there. But most of our listeners are lovely. Most of the stuff we get sent by people, I think is
it's more pros than cons for sure. The pros definitely outweigh the cons. It's like the 1% that are mean. It's not that many haters. But you have to read them all. So
yeah, we say to clients a lot, like when you're trying to talk to your customers, for example, it's the silent majority that you need to listen to, which is hard because they're silent. They're the ones not talking to you. You get one complaint and you go, oh, right, change our whole customer service approach. And then everybody stops buying from you and doesn't say why. It's because your customer service has become so clunky. It's annoying. It doesn't work anymore. There's too many, you got sued once. So you put so many like sign up with like 8 different tick boxes of terms and conditions before you can buy a product. It's like, well, no one's going to purchase that. I've never seen anyone do 8. I've seen 3 before though. When it's like, I accept the terms and conditions of what I'm ordering, it's some products, for example, are not allowed to be returned because of the nature of what the product is or what you use it for, etc. So some of those things, if you have to tick too many things, people aren't going to purchase. But anyway, let's talk about ecom then. So you obviously do similar to what I do. You interview people, you share lots of amazing statistics, lots of amazing strategies, tactics, and how to get stuff. It's 2024 now. We're heading, in fact, by the time it's going out, it'll be March. It's just before March when we're recording it. What are some of the things that are really important for people to acquire new customers, specifically trying to get new customers in? What are some of the things you think have changed over time that are really important for 2024, especially?
Yeah, I would say the competitive landscape overall is becoming more competitive, but not limited to the e-commerce space, right? Like we're seeing it if you got into Airbnb in 2021 when that was the thing, or flipping land. Like I think overall people are waking up to the idea of wanting to create more of their own destiny. So people are, at least this is my opinion. What I'm seeing is that there is more people wanting to get away from the 9 to 5 and kind of create their own destiny. And I think that it's only going to continue to be that in the future. So how does that relate to e-commerce? Well, that just means that we have to become more competitive entrepreneurs and build more competitive businesses. So the future rendition of people that are really going to succeed, I think, moving forward are people that are not only solving problems through their products, that's kind of a given, but also really honing in on the storytelling component to it, because the competition now is that, right? Like, you have Temu, you have all these other outliers, and just a lot of people like that are, turning their garages into their 3PLs or whatever. So I think that one thing that's really going to help people stand out is really defining, their brand that tells some sort of story that builds an emotional connection to the product or, whatever they're selling. So I think the one mistake that I think that gets overlooked early on is, people are just looking for like a quick, let's make some cash side hustle. And I really don't like that approach to any type of business, right? Like you should come in with the expectation that this is probably going to be the hardest thing that you've ever done. And when you have that proper expectation, right, that's going to serve you for the long play. And the people that have those proper expectations are the ones that are going to stick it out when, if 99 problems could go wrong, just assume that maybe 99 of those things are actually going to happen, but that's not going to, so what? Like that's not going to stop you from whatever the intended result is. And so I think mindset and really focusing on building a meaningful brand, not just something that like, oh, I'm just trying to make like, some side income. Like, no, I think it really has to be something that resonates with you and something that you can foresee yourself working on for the next 5 years. And I think a really good KPI or key performance indicator is that question is, can I see myself working on this for many years? Is this something that I'm going to stick out, to possibly sell one day and actually make a proper exit from, right? And, you have these kind of gut feelings sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you have to dip your toes in the sand and, make some mistakes to learn that lesson. But for the most part, I would say, we kind of have these North Stars where you have to listen to yourself of, is this something I'm really going to enjoy doing, or am I going to hate my life for the next 5 years? What is the actual winning here? So I
love the way you've answered that question, because I think some people would dive straight into the like, oh, PPC is the channel, TikTok's in the next thing. I think you've hit the nail on the head that actually the technology is going to change, and what we have to do, the platforms we have to work on, the way we have to advertise, the way Shopify is going to evolve. Shopify won't be around forever. There'll be another thing eventually. And hopefully Shopify don't send a hit squad after me for saying that. But they wouldn't, they're lovely and they're Canadian. I think the really tough thing is certainly if you said, and I said this on another podcast a few months ago, if you sat me down and said to the 15-year-old me, day to day, this is what your diary is going to look like: HR conversations, finance conversations, recording podcasts, asking good questions, reviewing if the hot water in the office is working or not, like all this kind of stuff. I'd be like, what? I quit now. Whereas I think almost I'm glad I didn't have that perspective. I'm glad I've kind of gone through the journey. And I think certainly bringing it back to ecom stores, I love what you were saying about actually solving a problem. I think one of the biggest challenges we as a marketing agency get when we talk to our clients is that they don't have a USP. There's nothing to kind of grab onto. I mean, you talk about home decor. Two of my clients spring to mind that are just, yeah, we've got loads of home decor and you can buy it on our website. And we're like, that's not enough. That's not enough these days. You need so much more than that. It's why buy it from you? You also sell on Amazon, and we'll talk about Etsy in a bit. You mentioned Temu. I don't think I've mentioned it at all on the podcast yet. I've been a bit worried too, because it's really annoying. They have a cheaper version of every product than anyone else. How long they're around for, I don't know. We'll see, and we will see. But actually, in terms of competitiveness, like Temu's come along and been basically like the cheapest version of Amazon, and it's almost the same color, and the same color as Alibaba. I don't know what it is with the orange range that everybody seems to go for, but I think there's some real challenges like that. So I guess bringing it back around to that USP bit then. So let's say, and this will probably resonate with a lot of our listeners, not all of you, but quite a few of you guys. People are sitting there going, all right, I've got a load of products. I've not really thought about why people buy them, et cetera, et cetera. How do you kind of grow out that? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a unique selling point, but how do you grow out that compelling selling point that here's why come buy from us?
For your products that already exist or the brand that you're thinking about launching?
I think probably the one that exists. I know from talking to most of our listeners, a lot of these guys already have a brand. It's how do I evolve that, bring it to life?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like if you're first starting out, like you really don't know, right? Like your first 1,000 customer service messages really tell you a lot about your customers. But then also in that process, not just doing customer service, right? Getting, seeing the reactions of like, okay, what type of content resonates with people, what goes viral, what doesn't, or what gets the most views, right? There's a lot of data that you can pull out of your customer experience. But overall, I would say once you like go through that and you're in that initial ascent to selling things and having these customer interactions, right? I would say that you would really want to define like a story that like, not a story, but like or even, oh man, we got to cut this out of the podcast.
It's fine.
Back this up. I am lost.
Do you want me to give you the question again?
Yeah, Byron, you're cutting this out. Say the question again.
It's all right. I made a note at the time.
Oh my God, I've never messed up in a podcast, but I was just really like, okay, the question was, how do I what?
Don't worry. We'll do it again. Whenever I've told people I haven't messed up in ages, that's when I screw up. Probably like 1 in 10 episodes, I start and just go like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, right, start again. All right, I'll give you the question again. So if people are just sort of starting out and they're thinking like, okay, I've got my store set up, I'm trying to sell some products, I'm getting traffic in, but I'm not converting. What is a good way for them to start actually sort of thrashing out, just as we were saying about that unique selling point? It doesn't have to be unique, but how do they start building out some sort of selling point, some sort of, I drop on the page as a customer and I look at the page and go, right, I have to buy this product, or I want to buy this product, or there's a real value add if I purchase this product now.
Okay, so if you're having trouble with conversions or you're launching for the first time and you're trying to make sense of the impressions and the data that you are getting. So like the first thing that I say, and this is true for Etsy and Shopify, is really if you're having trouble, because there's clearly a mismatch between either what you're selling, the value proposition, the way that your marketing is speaking to that customer avatar, right? So the first thing is, the worst thing that you can do at that point is just be like, oh, everything's a failure. I'm a failure. It's over with, right? Like that's not the answer.
We've all been there.
Right. The answer to that is actually going inward and actually looking at your products, looking at your offerings, looking at your value propositions, that is price point, looking at your marketing efforts. So creative marketing efforts, meaning your product photography, maybe your videography, maybe your social media, right? And then also compound that if you're a new store with not a lot of social proof and reviews, time can also be something that's not on your side. But let's say that you have had a couple of thousands of now impressions, people coming to your store, and we're not getting really any sales or nothing is really happening, right? So the worst thing you can do, like I said, is to be like, oh, this is a total failure. No, that's not the answer. The answer is let's go into the marketplace and actually look at what's working. And so the mistake that people make here, especially when I the marketplace or your market share of customer avatars by looking at competition, right? And so what I implore people to do is to go out to the marketplace and go find 3 to 5 of your direct competitors. And now, like I was saying before, the mistake that I see in this step is that people don't actually even know who their competitors are. They don't know who they're competing with, because if I say, okay, you're a fast fashion jewelry company, and then you come back and you give me you give me back, 3 out of the 5 competitors that you get back to me are selling solid gold jewelry. You're right. Yeah, we're both selling jewelry, but somebody that is selling solid gold jewelry over fast fashion gold jewelry, right? Those are 2 completely different customer avatars, right? So we really need to go find some sort of proof that basically validates our idea. We need to get like a clear KPI that people actually want what we need to sell. And if you're already launched and already did all this work, it's okay that you've skipped this step if you skip this step. But at this point, you need to go actually find something that says, hey, people actually want what I have to sell. And maybe it's just a matter of changing my value proposition, maybe some of my marketing efforts, maybe even my branding is a little bit off or something like that. So when you're going out into the competitor landscape, right, what we want to do is actually find competitors that are serving the same ideal dream customer avatar as us. So like I mentioned, if you're selling fast fashion jewelry and you're looking at people that are selling at a crazy different price point, and that is not your customer avatar, right? That is not a good person to look at, right?
Yep.
We want to look at people that are attracting that same person or the same ideal customer avatar as us. And then the next steps from there, okay, well, can we see any KPIs that might indicate that they're actually doing well, right? We obviously don't actually know their profit or their revenue, but clear KPIs that they're making sales is their reviews, right? Do they have hundreds of reviews, right? That helps you validate a product idea. Do they have a social media following? Do they have an engaged social media following? And not just analyzing that to get the proof of concept of what people want to sell, but also getting inspired by, okay, well, what are they actually doing? When you go to their best sellers tab and you look at the product with the most reviews, right? What is that image, right? How is that product staged, right? What is their quality of marketing with their product imagery? When you hit that drop down menu, what is their actual offerings and at what price point, right? And your goal is to meet or compete with the people that are attracting the same customer avatar as you. So I guess that was an elongated answer to your
very good
question.
answer. Very good.
But the answer isn't freak out, shut down. The answer is let's go inward and see what actually needs to be tweaked, what dials need to be tweaked to make sure that we are, actually a competitive store. And then really, if you come into the game and or you have built competitive marketing and competitive value propositions with a competitive product, right? The thing separating from you and, the person that has 10,000 reviews already on their Shopify store is just basically spending money on ads, influence. It's just the marketing engine part of the component, right? It's not an actual internal, issue with your actually your messaging or your marketing or your photos or your value, right? That's not the issue. Now it's just, we just need to do more. We need to do more content. We need to do more influencer outreach, right? So yeah, all of those things.
And I love you've still got this kind of thread going underneath of don't be scared to challenge who you are, to change who you are, to get to where you need to be. Because I think we've had so many brands and just to say, I loved your answer. I mean, it's so many different roads you've gone down, and I was almost like, which question do I ask first? I'm going to ask a couple of questions on it, because a couple of other points I think we should make about this. But I think it's that whole process of going, do you know what? If people hate our products, let's just accept it and change them. Nice and simple. People hate our branding. Well, it doesn't exist for us. It exists for the customers. Let's change it. And I think where we've hit shelves with clients over the years has always been where they've just gone like, no, you can't change that. That's the holy grail. To which we say, well, you made it up one day. So why can't we change it? Like, it doesn't work. Why can't we test something else? The data suggests that everyone wants to buy these 3 products, not these 500. They're the only ones that sell. So let's build a range of 500 around these things. And at which point we then suddenly ask ourselves the question going, we're like the PPC SEO agency. We shouldn't be giving product advice, but that's clearly the problem. clearly the
No, that's
problem.
that is, but
Yeah,
in
yeah.
agency world, that's what you end up doing, right? Like
Mhm.
they hire you for what? The traffic problem, but then they realize they're hiring you to solve for you to do your job as the traffic solution. You need to
Yep.
solve these other 10 things. And that's what happened. That's what my experience was in the agency world. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, oh, dang. And then you start learning all these other things. Okay,
Mm.
design, photography, all lighting, all these things. And
If
it's
I
like,
listed
wait,
out all the weird meetings I've been in over the years, weird because I shouldn't really have been there, from
yeah.
interviews, like literally interviewing candidates for a job, through to like branding stuff, through to I found myself at a fulfillment courier, like speed dating event where my client was trying to find a new courier, going, "You know more about couriers than we do, Nick." And I was like, "Really?" But it was like that was one of the issues: is your courier was too expensive and too slow, and that was the biggest customer service complaint, was that, and that was feeding. I love what you said about reviews. That fed into Trustpilot, and you can see it down all their Trustpilot reviews. This thing's not working. I love what you said about social media as well, and looking at, as part of the whole competitor piece, looking at social media and looking at the engagement. And I've seen so many brands that have said this over the years, like, can we just advertise loads on Meta and get more followers? Because if you get more followers, I can sell the business for so much more. To which I'm like, really? Like, I think VCs are much smarter than that now. They'll look and say you've got 1 million followers, but you get 20 likes per post. Where are the other 999,980 people? Like, where are they all hanging out? Because they're not hanging out on your Instagram profile. So I guess beyond engagement, like what sort of stuff are you looking at when you look at certainly their social footprint of a competitor? Like, what are some of the? I love the KPI metric. What are some of the KPIs you're looking at beyond engagement? Like, do you look at the actual sentiment of comments, how many likes they get? Are the likes consistent?
So as far as like creating the content, are you saying like making the content or
Sorry, in
just
terms of looking at competitor content. So when you're looking
looking
at
at?
like, is this competitor doing well or not?
Yeah, I would look at engagement. Engagement is always a clear indicator. Like for instance, like our jewelry company, engagement was it was really easy to spot. Now, home decor, people aren't as super engaged, but even
Mm,
with that said, like you have to get more of a data sample. Like you can't just be like, okay, because and the point I'm saying here is that like yeah you can go on a lot of different jewelry companies like competitor brands and your engagement is going to be really good, whereas just in home decor in general like the engagement is not as good, so you have to get the engagement relative to the niche, if that makes sense. So you
yep.
can't just like look at one and be like, oh, this profile sucks because there's no engagement right off. Actually it's pretty good when you compare it to 20 other competitors, right? So it's like
Mm,
relative to the niche. So but with your point, when I'm looking at content, obviously you're looking at on like Instagram, a lot of video stuff, right? So what's actually performing as
yep.
far as like getting the most reels, what type of hashtags are they using? And then to take it even a step further, if for your own content creation, right? For instance, like in, maybe we're getting inspired by viral content ideas that actually have nothing to do with jewelry, but it went viral because of these three attributes. And then we're turning that into,
Mm,
you know, potential viral content for jewelry. So we see this a lot of times, like with the different sounds that you can use and then different types of text and music and stuff like that. So, if there's like all that, I mean, this isn't anything new or, this is stuff that I think everyone knows at this point, but
mm.
we've gotten really good and really dialed in with our like media team of being like, hey, recreate, 10 versions or 10 variations of this type of content that literally has nothing to do with home decor,
Yep.
but we can do the same sort of thing with our own content basically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess this is probably one of the biggest questions I'm going to ask you today. We talk about social media and there's ways you can acquire customers through social. And I guess the point being, which I say on almost every episode now, is like, you can't just use one channel these days. You need to be in more places. You need to have that multi-channel approach. How do you tie it all together? Obviously, you use Omnisend. You sell a lot on Etsy. You've got Shopify stores. You obviously have the YouTube channel as well, which is about e-commerce, and you probably do lots of other stuff on YouTube. How do you kind of tie all of this together, keep it consistent? If consistency is what you recommend, some brands it doesn't work for. Actually, having different approach in each channel does work well. But how do you kind of tie all of that together so customers can engage with you in different places, but ultimately lead all of that to acquiring a new customer at the end of it?
I mean, we basically for our short form content on TikTok and Instagram, we're basically cross posting the same content. So
Mm,
we're editing it outside and then we upload it. We put in like hidden keywords and
yep.
text and stuff like that. Ultimately, TikTok and Instagram reel content, or not real, but short form video content is the same. And then on Instagram, we also do like static images. I mean, we don't get too caught up in like, oh, we have to make, different types of content for Instagram versus TikTok. My YouTube channel is a whole different thing, but talking about brand specifically, yeah. And it's just kind of that the engine that runs is just every week, right? We have 4 new ideas that get pitched. And then basically during that week, we're getting out a consistent outflow of new content at all times, basically. And I think the key is like for you, the winning is just whatever it is, even if it's only 1 video a week, 2 videos a week, whatever is realistic for you. It's about making small hedges over long periods of time. It's not about, I'm going to make 100 pieces of content in 15 seconds and then like hate myself the next month, right? Like that's not winning. Winning is what's realistic for me or my team, and how can we do that over long periods of time? Because also we're just especially if you're doing the content creation yourself, or even for the person that's doing it, like to really get out their best work or creativeness, you need to, even though it's like a simple video that could be 10 seconds, right? The way they make that cut or finish the sound or make the call to action, right? Like all those things are like little moments of truth, but decisions that ultimately someone has to make. So again, it's about whatever you decide for your content output, make sure it's just consistent over long periods of time, essentially. So yeah, it's whatever works for you. So.
And I think it's so important. Like we always have clients saying like, let's say we're doing SEO. They're like, how often do I need to write a blog post? How often do I need to record a video? And we're like, and I sometimes joke and say like, you need 8 blog posts a month and 12 videos, just to see what their reaction is. And they'll be like, oh, is that the magic formula? Like, yeah, it's magic. Just do that. It seems to cut the algorithm and you're number 1 for everything on Google. And they're like, really? And I'm like, no, no. How many are you doing at the moment? And sometimes they'll say like, we're doing this many. And I'm like, it's too many. And actually none of them are getting viewed. And we looked in your analytics, no one's looking at any blog posts. No one's watching any videos. 1 in 4 they're watching. So let's reduce the frequency to 1 in 4. And just do, instead of doing 4 a week, we'll do 1 a week, or instead of doing 4 a month, we'll do 1 a month, but we'll make it amazing. And we'll start off with, what would people engage with right now? What's their question? People who buy your product on a monthly basis, if it's something consumable or usable, in that sense, or actually somebody buys your product and they buy accessories. What's the lag between buying it and the accessory? 3 months. All right, well, we just need to put 2 videos about or 2 bits of content about how to use the product. And then we need a 3rd one going, are you ready for your first accessory? And actually put that in the subject line. Are you ready to enhance the product? And put your first thing with the product, which will actually improve the position. So the product might have cost $1,000, but the enhancement's $80, which doesn't sound like a lot. But what we've done is we've just created a habit. And the habit is I buy more products for my initial product. So I've got the base one, I'm going to keep adding stuff to it. And literally the alarm system for our office was like that. You buy a base station and you put some sensors in and the actual alarm thing that goes off and a keypad, and I can add more sensors to it. I can add more alarms. I can put cameras on it. I can put a doorbell on it. I can put a smoke alarm on it. And I get emails about all this stuff. And I'm like, that's a really cool marketing campaign. So as a marketeer, I respect that and buy more of their products to see what they'll do next. And it's,
think of an idea for the jewelry. Sorry, I just interrupted you. Like something I could have done. I could have sold jewelry cleaning kits, like so many things like that. Keep the customers more sticky, but sorry, keep going.
Exactly. But I mean, even with jewelry, for example, my wedding ring, every year my wife and I, we get our rings polished. So they look like super shiny. And we have this joke that mine lasts a week and hers lasts 6 months before it's not shiny anymore. But we do that every year, which means the guy who does it, he actually emails us at like 10 months now saying, are you ready for your next polish? I'm like, that's smart. Because instead, if we're going to do it 20 times over 20 years, if we did it every 10 months, he's just got a few extra, and it's probably an automatic email, but he's just one local, chap who makes jewelry and looks after jewelry. So I think it's looking at that frequency and that customer cycle. The one thing I've flagged this on the podcast loads recently, my favorite chart, and I love a good chart. My team and clients will vouch, I love a good chart. My favorite chart in Shopify at the moment is the customer cohort analysis, where it shows you first order, and then it gives you that chart of what percentage of people buy after 0 months, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. It's brilliant. And there's always this cutting diagonal line of Black Friday. That's your Black Friday sale. So if you last bought 10 months ago and it's Black Friday, you'll buy again now. And there's that line going through. And the thing we always say is, how do we make the rest of it higher as well? Like, what are you doing throughout that process? And whether that's specific campaigns we run on PPC, it's advice we create in a blog post on SEO and drive email traffic to it, or PR traffic or whatever. I think it's about tying all of that stuff together, which makes a lot of sense. All right, let's come into land now on one last topic. And obviously, and you could say I am, you definitely are, and that's an influencer. And obviously, influencer marketing is like the buzzword. You know, we've had Affluencer sponsoring the show before. We've had lots of different YouTubers and bloggers that I know on the show. Mostly people that are like travel bloggers, or they work with products or test drive cars or whatever. Obviously, you're a kind of hybrid, aren't you? Because you can be on the side of like, here's my jewelry and my home decor businesses, and come and check these out, but also on the e-com side as well. I don't want to ask a bland question to you because obviously we cover it a lot of like, how do you work with influencers? I guess what I want to ask, and this is something that comes up with clients again and again and again when it comes to influencers, is how do you convert influencer activity into revenue? That's always the biggest thing of like, we've got 20 influencers, we sent them all free products, a few of them we paid for every blog post, we're getting a bit of web traffic, but it's again, everything's been kind of thrust upon people in terms of marketing. None of it's like get on Google intent or Etsy. I'm looking for it now. So how do you convert some of that activity into revenue, or do you just go for the brand awareness and play long game? What's worked in your experience?
Yeah, in my experience, it's about having a really good influencer outreach team. Having a
Okay.
really, I've spent months, 4 different people, cycling people through this position.
Mm,
What worked for us is, yeah, you have to have whoever is in that position, because it's not just like messaging people, it's
yeah.
messaging the right people, and having somebody in that seat that really understands like an
Mm,
influencer and like how an influencer works, and who their audience is, and being able to
mm,
spot that. Some niches are easier than others, right? And one thing that we found is that you could reach out to an influencer that has, in the fast fashion jewelry niche, you're talking to a lot of teeny bopper younger girls. Everyone wants to be an
yep.
Instagram model type of customer avatar sort of thing. But what we found was that someone with 3,000 followers might make us $5,000 return, and then the girl with 100,000 followers makes you nothing,
Mm, yeah.
and you vetted them, you looked through all their stuff, all these things, right? Now, but the point is that that person that's in that seat is going to be able to vet, oh, wait a second, this girl that has 100,000 followers, that we're about to pay her a fat sponsorship fee, right? Like that person can go in and be like, oh, wait a second, half her pictures are just like her in a bikini, and that's probably not going to help us because we can assume who her followers are. Whereas
Yeah.
she can actually spot, oh, actually this girl with the 3,000 followers, we probably can pay less and give her affiliate on top of it, and maybe we see a wildly greater result. But again, that
Mm,
decision was all started from having that person that had that higher level thinking ability to say,
yep.
be able to call that shot, right? And you as the CEO not have to be behind them, hounding them every second on their influencer outreach or whatever. And also, a big part of it as well is, being really, really aggressive. So like even on my YouTube,
Mm,
with my YouTube, right? Like I'll get brands, they'll email you every single day for like 20 days until you answer. Like that's how
yep.
aggressive you have to be. And it's not, oh, okay, you have your influencer outreach girl that's reaching out to 100 influencers a day, and that's it. It's
Mm,
a actual consistent process, right? With
yep.
an Excel sheet, who's she reaching out to, how many followers they have, potential demographic, right? Are we sponsoring her? Are we just giving her free product? And it's actually tracking it to make something like
Yeah.
meaningful data on the back end. So
Which
I think,
affiliate's great for, because you can actually see how much traffic they've sent in. They get paid per person. So for a small influencer, it's like, if I push that and push it well, I make cash, and that's going to help me get to where I want to get to. So it starts to become, I think, a win-win between the business and the influencer at the same time.
yeah, in my experience, what I've seen when you do get into the people that are legit, and they're at the times when I owned that brand, they would throw out crazy numbers. Like someone with like 200,000 would be like, oh, it's 10K for a post. And
Mm,
like, can you give me like a case study of like your results? Like no one could give it to you.
yep.
So I don't think it's as crazy as it was, just because there's more competitiveness.
Mm,
But yeah, it's definitely important that it's whatever you do for that engine, because that is its own engine, right?
hmm.
PPC is its own engine, and content
Yep.
creation, then influencer outreach, right? That's its own little world that's going on. You just want to make sure that it's trackable, right? Or tried to make it as trackable as possible. Affiliates is obviously the easiest way, but then also on the people that you're sponsoring, like paying flat rates plus affiliate or whatever you're doing, right? We have some sort of database happening on the back end that's like recording those results. It definitely works. The hardest part for us was getting that right person in that right seat that cared enough to like not overlook all those details. And even when I'm getting reached out to for YouTube, like you can immediately tell who's done the research, who actually knows, because I'm sure you have a similar thing where people will want to sponsor a podcast and they have no idea. It's like, did you even look at like who our listeners are? Like
We
clearly
still get
not.
emails saying, "Hey Caroline, we want to sponsor the podcast." I'm like, Caroline's not been here for 3.5 years, like, and she's not been involved in the business at all for most of that. So it's like, or hi first name. That's always a classic. It's like straight in the bin.
Exactly.
I did see one recently. It said hi first name and the whole thing about sponsoring the podcast. And then I got another email going like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean first name." Well, I actually did. Have I caught your attention yet? And I thought that I respect that. That's smart. I do like that. That's quite cool.
They're doing all these crazy things. I think the one
yeah.
thing, if you really want to sponsor, like if there's someone that you really want, the one thing that I just know, and I know this is hard to do for some people, but if you really know that you want somebody, just come out the gates with the subject line saying paid sponsorship. If you put affiliate offer, they're not even going to open it, right? Like you need to make sure that they know that this is a negotiable flat rate situation happening, and then have that girl also needs to learn how to negotiate properly and negotiate that sponsorship rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like I said, I love that. I love the affiliate model for this kind of stuff, especially with the smaller ones. We've certainly had loads of situations where our clients said, "Yeah, we're going to use so and so." They got 100,000 followers, and we just literally go on their Instagram on a computer, and you just hover over it instantly, and when it takes you like 10 likes, 12 likes, 10 likes, you're like, who are these like 100, 200,000 followers? Like they're obviously dormant. This is not a good thing to spend money on. But I think as well, like if you find the right influencer who's growing nicely in terms of their channel followings, they're going to look after you. If you can keep working with them, keep doing stuff, you could eventually give them their own range on your site. Just be like, here's your own collection, put whatever you want in it. It will tell us what you want, what products you want in there. We'll put them in, and you can just drive traffic to that collection. And it'll only be through you. Anyone who buys anything that's in that collection, that's come through that collection, we can track that. That goes to you. So regardless of like cookies and influencer links and affluencer links and stuff working, it's fine. Like the affiliate thing will work because we know it's been tagged in the right category. And we've certainly seen that with a couple of jewelry brands where we've seen like a certain influencer comes along and it's like, cool, why don't you sit down with us? We'll show you some designs and we'll create you your own little mini range of like 6 pieces. You don't need to pay anything. We'll make them, or we'll just make sure we've always got one in stock. As soon as we sold it, we'll get another one, and we'll manage our own stock levels and stuff. But you can just sell these things and we'll give you 25% for your name to be on it. Agree something more custom with them. But yeah, sounds awesome.
Collections definitely work, especially jewelry, home decor. It works. I don't know. I would say anything aesthetics, it works really well when you put
social media is all visual, isn't it? So if it doesn't look good, I mean, you made a joke about me looking young earlier, and Byron keeps saying to me like, "Nick, keep that face cream up, whatever face," but it is all visual. Like, and it's not so much my face, but if I was sitting in a dingy, dark room right now, we before we hit record, everyone, just to let you know, we both had a little joke about the fact that we both got proper microphones and stuff because we know what we're doing. Some of my guests don't. They're lovely guests, and we edit as much as we can to make it, quite watchable. But it's got whatever content it is, whether it's stuff we're projecting out and information you guys want, or it's an advert that you guys are serving to your audiences and to try and acquire customers, it's got to look good. And good is subjective to who you are, your brand, who it's going to, etc. So I think it's really important to make sure actually the aesthetics, and the same with your Shopify store and Etsy stores, make sure the aesthetics all work, make sure it all couples together nicely. No one wants to buy from a boring, old, dormant brand. I often say retail is entertainment. And so buying stuff is entertaining. And there's that feeling of like, when you click purchase, you're like, I've just handed something over and I'm getting something really cool back. And it's that transaction that is exciting to people, as long as it's the right thing and, you're not ripping people off and the experience wasn't clunky. As soon as it becomes clunky, they're like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not enjoying it anymore. And that's when they'll start to leave. But anyway, we could do a whole piece on conversion optimization, I'm sure, another time. But Hannah, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining us. It's been great to chat. And I'm sure this won't be the last that you see both of us on the same screen. I'm sure we're going to, I'm sure we're going to have a chat after this and do some other stuff. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you joining us today.
No, thank you. It's been awesome. And hopefully you can come on my podcast.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'd love to. So everyone go and subscribe to EcomHannah. Go and check her out, and we'll try and sort something out. But for everybody else listening, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't already, we've got hundreds of other episodes, so go back and check out some of the other ones. Even some of the topics a few years ago are still relevant. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, leave us a review, check out our website, do what you want, and now go and have a nice beer or something. But thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you join us again next week. We hope to see you then. Thank you very much.